Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again on Friday. Wow, Parashat V'etchanan Nachamu. We are now being consoled after the destruction of two temples, and God is consoling us. And of course, it's much more than that. You feel being consoled today. On a personal level, last Shabbat, I was sitting with my family. We were all at the Shabbos table. And I'll tell you honestly, we were climbing the walls. It was so painful. Our boys we knew were in the battlefield in Gaza. Very worried about them, hearing every day terrible stories of soldiers being killed and being injured. And I said to my family, I said, I'm praying next week, let it be that Hashem will send my two boys home, we can be together on Shabbat. And here it is, Shabbat Nachamu. And we say Nachamu twice. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. A double consolation. Here we have a double consolation, knowing that my boys are home this Shabbat with us. It's such a wonderful thing. Thank you, Hashem, for letting us spend more time with my children and to see my two sons home safely. Of course, here I am celebrating for us. We have to celebrate. We have to be thankful to Hashem on our personal level. But at the same time, the war continues again. They broke the ceasefire. And of course, our boys are going to probably have to go back soon again and again do the job of defending the country. And the pain, of course, is on one hand, here we're celebrating, my person, the Goldsmith family. On the other hand, at the same time, there are people with mourning. And there are girls that were engaged and not going to ever get married to the boys they love. And so many people suffering here. Many families have injured, and those who lost legs and lost arms and lost their vision. And fighting to try to defend the country, how do we celebrate? On the other hand, we have this great pain about those who have to suffer so much. And this is part of a life struggle for every human being that really cares about others, not only himself. There's always where to draw the line between my personal happiness and growth and development and well-being as compared to others who may not have that same that at that moment, because we all go through difficult things in life, but others who suffer at the same time you're enjoying their suffering at that same time. How do you deal with this? And I think this week's portion is a great lesson of understanding a little bit, maybe a little bit of this difficult topic, and I'd like to focus this week's lesson on that. In order really to begin and maybe to even strengthen or stress this a little bit more, I'd like to open up with a story. Last week I had a group of college students who came from Cincinnati, Ohio, and they were on a program, and whatever it was, they're very secular, and right away when the group came, they asked me to speak to them. I spoke to them about 45 minutes, a lecture about the land and what Itamar is all about, how a historical understanding of the area. And right away I asked the first question, I said, how many of you are going to live in Israel one day? And no one raised their hand, which means here we have a group of, let's say, 20, 25 college students from America, all born Jewish, all connected to at least by gene connection, and by birth, Jews, but no one wants to live in the land. And right away I was very surprised, and one even hurt me so much. He said to me that, why should I live in the land of Israel? The fighting, the wars go on, and the struggles that you go through here. Why? I want to build my life. I want to have a career, happiness with my family. I want to live the beautiful life of apple pie and Chevrolet and 2 cars in every garage. And right away I said to him, I said, listen, life is not for our own personal benefit. For sure a person has to develop himself, but what kind of life when a person lives for himself and doesn't live for others? What do we have to show after we leave this world? It was very strange for me but that has to do with not strange, not that I haven't heard this viewpoint, but this is the viewpoint of a Western culture, of a society. It's not Jewish culture, it's not Israel culture, it's not Torah culture. The Torah teaches us to always to try to reach out, to try to do for others, and not to worry about my personal self. And the more personal grows, the more worry he has for others. And this, of course, connects to what I opened up with. And I think, even more so, this week's portion opens up with that, which is a very, very mind-boggling kind of thing. Moshe Rabbeinu was told, after he sins by hitting the rock, him and Aaron are not going to enter the land of Israel. And here he goes on this week's portion, praying 515 times for a personal gift. Give me, Rashi says right away, a matnat chinam, give me a personal gift of entering the land of Israel. Which means Moshe Rabbeinu, his desire is to have some kind of personal enjoyment in this world. He goes, let me go to the land. I want to be there. And different explanations explain, it says that what does it mean at that time? Moshe Rabbeinu is asking God to enter the land of Israel. What does it mean at that time? And one explanation I think is very connected, connects this very much, explains that after Joshua was appointed to be the next leader of Israel, so Moshe Rabbeinu really said, okay, Joshua's now going to be leader of Israel. Let him take over, over the ship, and now let me go in as a regular citizen of Israel. I have no problem with that. I'll be a regular person. So here it seems like Moshe Rabbeinu is sort of saying, okay, I want to, for my own personal benefit, I want to enter the land. And it goes so much against his character. Everything about Moshe Rabbeinu was not for himself, was of course doing for others. His whole life was doing for others. And in reality, that's really, I think, the deep meaning of the Midrash. It's a beautiful Midrash that brings down, Moshe Rabbeinu said, listen, I've been carrying the bones of Joseph for 40 years. Why does he merit to be buried in the land? And I'm buried outside the land. And the first answer is a very famous answer, is that we know Joseph always immediately identified himself as being in Ivri, meaning being a Jewish person. Ivri was the first name given by Abraham, Ivri, meaning he was Ivri on the other side. The whole world was worshipping idol worship. He was on the other side, entered the land of Canaan. And of course we know the other meanings of the word Ivri could also come from Aver, being the son of Aver, whatever it is. Ivri is one of the first ancient Jewish names. And Joseph right away said, I'm a Jewish. I belong there. When he was being blamed for raping the wife of, accused of trying to rape the wife of Potiphera, she says this Ivri, she called him an Ivri, and he said, I was stolen from the land of the Ivri. So he right away identified who he was. Moshe Rabbeinu, on the other hand, when he was down in Midian and he rescued the daughters of Yitro from the shepherds, what did they say to the father, Yitro? They said, Daddy, an Egyptian man saved our lives. He saved us. Whatever it was, there we see Moshe Rabbeinu didn't immediately testify to who he was. And God said, therefore, Joseph's going to be buried in the land, because he right away felt he was connected to the land of Israel. But though you felt you weren't connected, right? You didn't identify yourself as a Jewish right away. Then you'll be buried outside the land. So we have a great lesson. Of course, the Midrash teaching us an important lesson of how a person who is connected to the land of Israel, and he has a stake in the land, he must immediately say who he is and not want to live somewhere else. And now today we have an opportunity of returning easily to the land. Everyone must come home. All those Jewish people who are living somewhere they shouldn't be living, let them come home to the land of Israel. But that's a lesson in itself. I want to get back to what we were saying. The Midrash brings another explanation, is that it's saying that Moshe Rabbeinu, if you were buried in the land of Israel, all those who died in the desert wouldn't come back to life. You have to remain there, because you're like a gold coin amongst pennies. And that gold coin is so precious. And the Midrash brings a story when someone actually dropped like 10 little small coins, and he asked for help and said, no one really is going to help him for 10 little small coins. So then he dropped the gold coin, and everyone ran to help him. It was night, and they lit matches, they lit whatever they could light to find that gold coin. At the same time, he was able to find his other 10 coins that he dropped. The same thing here. God says, if you're going to be buried in the land of Israel, when I come and take you back to the land, when the revival of the dead and the redemption process, I'm going to take back everyone who was buried out there in the desert. Which means the Midrash is teaching us on a very deep level that Moshe's whole life was for Israel and for that generation of the desert, and he has to be buried with them. Eventually, of course, he'll return. He'll have that wonderful privilege of returning to the land. But in the meantime, he has to remain with them, which means his whole life he's given to them, and at his death, at the same time, he's also giving to them at his death. And that's called Mesiut Nefesh, of giving yourselves for others. And that's really the lesson. The greatest lesson of life is those who give for others. And the highest levels when those who actually die for others. And that's really all those soldiers who've given their lives for the sake of Israel to be safe and to continue to give their lives that we can live here safely in the land of Israel. These people are on the highest possible level they could be, giving your life, willing to risk your life and sacrifice yourself. The greatest gift God gave to you, your life, your soul, your neshama, your physical life, because our soul is everlasting. And you're giving it to others, and that's called Mesiut Nefesh. And that's, of course, we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu's whole existence and all these soldiers who have given their precious lives for the people of Israel so we can be here safely. And let this be again a tribute to them, and that we should remember them in a special memory of those wonderful soldiers who have given throughout Israel history their lives for others. But I want to also go even further and understand this concept, what it is, the difference of worrying about ourselves and others, and looking more into the personality of Moshe Rabbeinu. And here I saw a beautiful Torah by a rabbi named Rabbi Tzvi Horowitz. He wrote a book called Panim Yefot. He was the Bal HaFla'ah, lived about 200 years ago, the rabbi of the Khatam Sofer. It's a very famous rabbi. Those who are in the Torah world probably heard of the book. And he brings down a Gemara in Moed Katan. And the Gemara brings down a verse from Malachi that says that it equates that a Kohen, a priest, I think it's brought down in chapter 2, verse 7. I have it in front of me. I'd like to read the verse to you aloud, because It's not like seeing a verse. Yes, it's Malachi chapter 2, verse 7. Yes. It says like this, Ki siftei kohen yishmeu dat. Because the lips of a kohen will literally means to watch dat knowledge. The Torah yivakshu mipiu, and they will request to learn Torah from his lips. And it says right after that, Ki malach Hashem tzvakotu, because he's an angel of God. So here it sort of compares this kohen that's a scholar in Torah to a malach, an angel of God. And Rabbi Yochanan in the Talmud of Moed Katan says right away, when a person wants to choose a rabbi, how do you choose a rabbi? Did you ever try to choose a rabbi before? And it says, if your rabbi is like an angel of God, then you should request to learn Torah from his lips. If not, no. You want to find a rabbi who's like an angel. And that's what Rabbi Yochanan says in the Talmud. And that's what the verse here in Malachi is talking about. Now, what does this refer to, being like an angel of God? What does it mean that a rabbi is like an angel? I mean, angels are different than human beings. How can a rabbi be like an angel? We're human beings, right? We're people. We're all individuals. We're all flesh and blood. So as I said before, Rabbi Horowitz in Panim Yafot has a beautiful explanation. And he says, he brings down a verse in Psalms that says, Tzadik katama yifrach, a righteous person will blossom like a palm tree. Uke'erez balevanon yizgeh, and then he will blossom like a cedar tree. So he asked right a question, wait, choose, is he like a palm tree, a righteous person, or like a cedar tree? What is the difference of the two trees? And then it goes on to say, bechatzrot, it says, Tzadik katama yifrach, be'erez levanon yizgeh, shetulim beveit Hashem. It says they will be planted in the house of God, bechatzrot beit Hashem yafrichu, and they will blossom in the courtyard of God's house. Wait a second. Are they in the house of God or in the courtyard of God? Are they outside in the courtyard? So here he asks the question, how do we understand this midrash? And he explains something very beautifully, that a rabbi, as a teacher, it's very, very easy. A teacher can be on two different things. On one hand, a Torah scholar could worry about his own personal development, and then he could rise and rise and rise on his own personal level. Or he can worry about his students and try to reach out to his students and make sure that his students grow. And he's saying this is what the prophet is teaching us. And the Talmud and Rabbi Yochanan is teaching us in Moed Katan, is that if your rabbi is like an angel, what is an angel? An angel stands still. An angel doesn't have the movement like people do. And therefore, if your rabbi is like an angel, meaning that he's willing to stand still on his personal development, means to give over his personal development for the benefiting of others. That is the rabbi you should choose. Not the rabbi who's going to always constantly worry about his own personal development, growth, etc. And therefore, this rabbi is going to be like a palm tree, he's going to have a lot of fruit in the end. You may think, the rabbi might say to himself, okay, if I'm going to worry about others, what's going to happen in the end? And the answer is, you're going to be a palm tree, who's going to bear fruit. On the other hand, the rabbi who's worried about his personal development and wants to constantly grow, and more like a cedar tree gets very, very tall, but has no fruit. And therefore, that's the same thing. Nishtulim Beit Hashem, they be planted in God's house. You may think that you can end up being outside because you're not growing spiritually so much because you're worried about others. No, you're going to grow so spiritually. You're going to end up being in the house of God because you're outside in the courtyard, helping others. Then you're going to really be planted in the house of God. It's a beautiful Torah of Horowitz explaining what a rabbi must be. And this I heard who brought this down was again Rabbi Love Hearing, Rabbi Baruch Rosenblaum, who brought down this beautiful Torah and actually looked in the source to see it in the inside. It's amazing, beautiful Torah. So this, I think, is a great lesson that connects so much what I was talking about. A rabbi, Moshe Rabbeinu was the rabbi of the people of Israel, of course, the greatest rabbi. And even on his death, he couldn't worry about himself. He had to be buried outside the land just to show how much he identifies with the people of Israel. When he comes time to him to come back, on Tchiyat HaMeitim, when God revives the dead, he'll bring them all back in the land, but until then he's not leaving them, which means his whole worry, even at his death, was for his own people, the people of Israel, that they should benefit and return to the land of Israel. And that's a lesson, again, we opened up with. Here we are, this Shabbat, we're going to be celebrating our own personal Yom Tov, our own personal happy event. On the other hand, we always feel for others out there. So what is the answer? Does it mean we can't be happy when God has given our sons back to us and others are out there somewhere else? And of course, no, we must be happy and we must thank Hashem for our, again, I said before. At the same time, we have to reach out and try to strengthen those who have been hit hard and reach out to them and do for others, because there's nothing greater than this world than doing for others and going beyond ourselves. Because here we are on a short mission in this world. One day we're all going to be somewhere else. But we leave this world knowing that we've done for others, there's no greater legacy than that. But anyway, have a wonderful Shabbat. Let's hear good news. Right now, again, rockets are falling in the land of Israel. And things are not so simple. But we're going to pray for good news. And we know this is all part of the redemption process that's coming closer and closer, because God is not letting things remain in a standstill. We see that the great revelation of Achdut Yisrael, of Am Yisrael getting together and uniting, is causing huge things to change in the world. And God is not letting the redemption stand still. We are heading for our third temple. But anyway, have a wonderful Shabbat. Miss you and love you all. Shabbat Shalom, B'sorot Tovot, Yeshuot v'Nechamot.